We're recording now.
Hey, y'all. This is Claire Horner with Resetting Life After Sexual Trauma. And today, Dr. Sadal and I are going to be talking about the freak out free process. And we created this kind of reset platform a couple of years ago when we were doing some private groups and private kind of book clubby kind of stuff. And when we realized that our clients over the years and years, who are on their sexual trauma journey were not picking up their books that they needed or wanted to read for their healing, not listening to podcasts, not following people on social media, and just sort of kind of leaving that over there because of all the triggers that it can create. And so we thought it'd be good to talk about how to approach resources because we need them. We need to be able to pick up a book and know what to do. And so we want to walk through what we call our freak out free approach or process to doing that.
Absolutely. So for us, when we say freak out free, we really think about how to create and use our resources in a way that's not triggering for us. So freak out free is another way that we say triggering free. We know the things and we have probably started to recognize the things that trigger us. And so when we are feeling triggered, when we are feeling higher anxiety than we're comfortable with or we're ready to handle, that means you're freaking out in the space of your journey, and you're freaking out with whatever resource this is that you're using, whether that be a therapist, a book, etc. And so we wanted to create a space where people could utilize their resources in a way that did not overwhelm them and in a way that allowed them to, at their own pace, move past the anxiety and the frustration and that feeling of being overwhelmed and fit their resources with where they are in the moment. So the idea is that you are avoiding that space of trauma drain or trauma hangover, that feeling that I never want to do this again. We don't want that to be where you are in your process or in your journey, or even with the resources that we provide. So freak out free means you avoid the trauma hangover, it's not triggering for you, and you go at your own pace.
Right. And a good first step for that is to learn about the nervous system because trauma is a nervous system based experience. And there's so many emotions that obviously go with it, especially with sexual trauma, but your body was there and went through it. And so when you start to try to read something or listen to something or do some of your work, that is when your trauma response and your nervous system gets kicked off. And so if you can learn more about the nervous system and pair that with learning about your triggers, that's going to help you know when to put the book down, when to stop the podcast, whether it's a day where you wake up already feeling a little, I call it hot, like nervous system hot. You're intense already when you wake up. That may not be a day to engage with any kind of resource, but you get to make that decision. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But one tool that you could use is the subjective unit of distress scale. And that's the scale, you've heard it before, 0 to 10, how do you feel today? At the hospital, doctors use it for levels of pain, but the subjective unit of distress scale itself talks about what is a 0, what is a 1, what is a 2. And so that you have a definition and you can learn how to know, you know what, I'm at a 4 today. I could probably read that chapter, or I could probably spend 10 minutes on that podcast and be fine and could be able to go back to work or move on with my day. I could probably do that. And so that's just one tool that you might be able to use, but get to know your nervous system and how you get triggered.
I think in that same vein of getting to know your nervous system, you also want to understand where you are in your journey so that you can choose the level of resource that will work for you in the moment. So that means if you are just getting started and you're very new and you kind of want to tap, touch your feet in a little bit, you sit at the side of the pool, put your feet in for a second. Or if you've been at this space of journeying and healing from your trauma for quite some time, and so you can take longer stints of resources, or you can take the larger books or the therapy sessions. It really is up to you where you are on your journey, and it's not a one size fit all. So when we're looking at our resources, it may be where you're doing what we like to call passive engagement. That means you have identified maybe some social media followers that work for you and that you like the positivity, or they speak to something that you're going through, whether that be your anxiety or your perfection, whatever that looks like. And it may not necessarily be trauma focused resources, but they're resources that do help you in whatever situation you're currently in. And so we like to encourage people and encourage survivors to look at where they are on their journey and then begin to pick their resources based on that, knowing that there's no right or wrong way to do that.
Right. So you want to pick your level. You want to pick the level that matches where you're at. And I
Mhm.
would say, your level on a given day might be, I'm going to spend a few minutes in the comments, just reading comments on this person's post. That may be it. You may not make a single comment. So pick your level. And then you want to pick your type of resource. I'm gonna put up a list of all the different types of resources that we talk about. It could be an app, it could be a Instagram follow, it could be a YouTube channel, it could be a movie, it could be a certain type of music, it could be obviously books and journals. Journals are good resources. So you want to decide what kind of resource you want. Do you want to listen? What's natural for you? Do you want to listen? Do you want to read? Do you want to write? What kind of thing do you want to watch something? What is best for you and what do you enjoy? Um, and it also would be good for it to be easy to access. So that might be on your phone. Another aspect is you want to make sure, if it's important to you, that it can be private. You may not want a book sitting on your coffee table with a certain title that might give people the idea of what you're doing. Now, I'm not saying that there should be shame in that, but you might want some privacy in terms of your journey and your process. So think about that. Would you rather have a book on a Kindle? Would you rather have a podcast, deep inside your Spotify? You know, what what's going to help you with that?
Awesome. I love that. I love that idea of privacy versus shame. I think that's an important distinction in this space. So, the next thing that Claire and I talk a lot about is saying no, and not just saying no, but saying no to yourself. Because sometimes we push ourselves in ways that aren't necessary. Right? We push past the point of comfort, we push past the point of progress. And so, in this idea of knowing when to say no means knowing when to put the book down, knowing when to get off of the social media, knowing when to get out of the comments, and knowing when too much is too much for you, and that being okay. And this is one way that we can use our voice, possibly in a way that we haven't used our voice before. And so that means if we're doing this, whatever environment we're in, home, school, work, whatever that looks like, but using your voice and starting to use your voice with yourself so that you build a confidence and then you're able to use that voice externally as well. So knowing when to say no and being okay with your no, and not feeling like you need to apologize for the no, even when the no is to yourself. I think that's really important. Again, picking your resources, understanding your levels, but then saying, no, I'm not going to do that today. Today is not a day where I'm going to even pick up a resource, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Trauma is not a no pain, no gain
Mm-hmm.
place. That's
Yeah.
No pain, no gain is not a way to approach trauma. Trauma will start screaming at you from all sides.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't
Absolutely.
need that. So another thing to do is already know who you can turn to for support. Let's say, and the support might be that you want to talk about what you're reading. You want to talk about that with somebody that you feel safe with. And so have that friend, that family member, the professional, or maybe even an online forum or platform where you can go and talk to other people about what you're reading or listening to.
Absolutely. And
Us,
so
we're
I was
good
going to
for that.
say, I'm sorry, say again. I just cut you off.
I said we're good for that. You know, come
Hmm.
to the YouTube page and, you know, talk in the comments about whether some of the resources that we mentioned are working for you, or whether you have some that are working for you that others need to know about.
Absolutely. And then last but not least, let's bring it all home, right? Like how does the things that we're talking about, how does this freak out free, this, trigger free zone, how does all of this relate to what Claire and I like to call you are your own best resource? How do we connect these dots for us? And connect these dots for you. And the way that we do that is that you are your own best resource because you get to decide. You are in control of what resources work best for you, how you're going to use those resources, how often you're going to use those resources, how you're going to engage and approach this journey that best fits you. So, yes, there are external resources that we will have for you, but you get to decide how you're going to use those resources and how they're going to impact your journey. So, even with all the external resources that Claire and I provide, at the core of that, you are still the center. At the core of that, you are still your own best resource because you know what you need. And so, a part of the journey is beginning to trust yourself again with your instinct and what you need, and to believe that you're making the best decision for you better than anyone else can make. And so, that is what I think is really important in this space is that after everything, you're still your own best resource.
Absolutely. And if you don't trust yourself yet, that's a place to be working. So thank you so
Absolutely.
much for joining us. This is April 2021. So we are wanting to bring you more resources during Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And so we hope you have a great day, a great week, and a great month.
Thank you guys for joining us. Bye.